Bowl games should never be played in by a team from that town, with a few rare exceptions. And due to the expansion of the college football playoff, I would say those exceptions should be even more rare now. Before, if UCLA won the Pac 12 and had therefore earned a spot in the Rose Bowl, I can find that acceptable. Or if Miami had earned their way into the Orange Bowl, I can understand that. Because anything else would be a categorical demotion of a bowl game. Once you get outside of the New Year's Six, however, there is much more room for debate of which bowl games are more prestigious than others, and the demotion argument is much more difficult to make. Bowl games are supposed to be a chance for the fan bases to travel to a neutral site and celebrate a successful season, but that celebration gets a bit tainted when the PA announcer at the game makes one team significantly more welcomed than the other. That's all well and good during the regular season, but keep it out of bowl season, especially if you're going to treat the allotted home team, which Iowa State was, as a relatively unwelcome visitor. Today is Friday, January 5th. I'm Matt Menson, and welcome to the Cornfield Sports Pod. As always, we got co-host Blake Peterson. And,
Absolutely.
That Liberty Bowl loss.
No,
I mean,
you want to know how bad I ate my words last week? About halfway into the first quarter, I turned off the game. I didn't want to deal with the stress. Just no.
Yeah, well, I mean, we allowed 3 touchdowns in that first quarter.
No.
And it's not like I had the option of turning it off. I was there. I was in the stadium, so I was stuck with it. And it was cold. It was cold, so it wasn't like I was going to get my phone out and have my fingers freeze either. I was sitting there with my mittens in my pockets, and, I mean, just hoping and praying that Iowa State would find a way to come back, and we at least made the game competitive closer to the end, but 10-point loss with no rushing yards at all, terrible. Just unacceptable. But yeah, as Blake mentioned on last week's show, I was present at the game, and like I mentioned here just a couple minutes ago, I was present at the game. Teams should not have home bowl games. This should not be a thing that happens. The whole point of a bowl game is for it to be neutral. And this is twice now that we've had to deal with this with the Liberty Bowl. I'm not aware of any situations with other bowls that we've dealt with this. Are you?
No, definitely not.
Because I know, like, the only other bowls that we've really went to in any recent history, like, we've been to the Liberty Bowl, actually, another time that we played Tulsa way back when. And we had the Camping World Bowl against Notre Dame, but that's in Orlando. We had the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon, but that's in Phoenix. So, and then you go back before that, it's, a couple Insight Bowls, and that's down in Tempe. That's down in Tempe, Arizona. And I don't recall playing Arizona State in either of those games. So,
where was the Alamo Bowl again? I can't remember.
The Alamo Bowl's in San Antonio.
Okay.
And the only team in San Antonio is UTSA, and they're not making an Alamo Bowl anytime soon. So, I did forget about that one. But, we played Washington State in that one, so that was a long ways from home for both teams, which was fine. Iowa State still showed up in force and drank the city dry of Busch Light, so that's what we do. But yeah, the actual game down in Memphis itself, it was a cold game, which, I mean, that's another thing that sucks during bowl season is getting stuck with a cold game. You're always hoping you get a warm game in Texas or Florida, and that just didn't happen. Maybe if, we beat Ohio, like we should have, and I understand a lot of our players were sick, but come on. Ohio was a beatable team.
It was like everyone came into that knowing we were going to win. Oh, no.
And then we found a way to clutch defeat from the jaws of victory. You make an extra point, or was it? Yeah, it was a field goal. A field goal that we made, and they called it missed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was bad.
Why are we going back to this depression?
because we could have been in the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando, and it could have been warm.
We could have had an edible mascot.
Instead, we were in Memphis, and it was cold. It sleeted on our tailgate. So yeah, that was something else. 0 penalties called on Memphis too was a little bit ridiculous. As if the home field advantage wasn't bad enough. It seemed like from the point of the crowd, it felt like they were home officials too, which didn't make it any better. I know they weren't, but I mean, Iowa State's first offensive play, egregious face mask. Abu Sama got face masked badly on his first run, and it didn't get called. Obviously, there was no penalties called in the entire game. And you don't want something like that to set the tone for the game, but nonetheless, that is exactly what happened. And, you call a hold penalty against Memphis's offensive line here or there, which should have been done, then their line isn't going to be as aggressive over the course of the rest of the game. It's also going to change their play calling for the rest of that drive, which can influence the rest of the game because you could turn a drive into a 3-and-out. So things like that completely alter the course of the game. And, you can't really say one way or the other how it would have ended, but it certainly would have ended in the exact way that it did, for sure. Either way, it's a disappointment. And they didn't call a whole lot of penalties in either direction. There was a couple that I saw that they didn't call on us either. So I don't want to act like it was completely one-sided because it wasn't. But there was a lot of stuff that went uncalled in that game, and I was just disappointed where it looked like the Zebras kind of showed up and didn't really intend on actually doing anything. On the plus side, Rocco Beck now holds the ISU single-game passing record at 446 yards.
Yes, sir.
This happened because our run game was completely non-existent. In the most literal sense, we had 0, I repeat, 0 rushing yards. And this was due primarily to our offensive line just not being able to seal blocks, and our play call with a run being a zone read essentially every time. And when they can't seal the first 2 reads, when they can't seal either of the first 2 reads, then Sama's got nowhere to go before he gets tackled in the backfield. There's nothing he can do in that situation. So, yes, Abu Sama only had 4 yards rushing in this game on 12 carries. But this blame is not... I'm not putting any blame on Sama for this because there was almost nothing he could have done with the blocking situation that he was given during that game. There's a desperate need for improvement on the offensive line next year.
Yeah. I look at this game and I just think, where did Farmageddon go? Because we just go from a stellar performance. I know there's snow on the ground for Farmageddon.
Not only was there snow on the ground, but there was a lot of snow on the ground. That game's a complete outlier.
Yeah.
Because you also have to look at that. The defensive line, Kansas State's defensive line, was unable to get any traction of any kind during that game. They were slipping and sliding, and the lines were just collapsing in on each other the entire game. There's not really any blocking going on in that game, more or less just falling over each other. And when that changes that drastically, the running back can kind of just go around them, which is what happened in that game. Now, it's not like the field conditions were, terrific in Memphis either. It was wet, and wet turf can get kind of slick. But it wasn't like the defense and the offensive line were just slipping and sliding into each other and falling over. They were still trying to set blocks, and Memphis was walking right through. It was not a good performance. 0 total run yards is not a good look to end the season. But at least we can be reasonably confident that the next time they play a football game, once we get to September, they will in fact have more rush yards than they did in the last game. So I guess that's the silver lining. Prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If we end up with negative rush yards against some non-con FCS opponent, whoever the heck we end up playing, that would be a whole new brand of disaster. So, yeah. We got TJ Tampa declaring for the NFL draft. He didn't play in that game against Memphis. We could have used him because Memphis was beating us on fly routes on the outside, hitting us with the deep ball. That's how they scored 2 out of their first 3 touchdowns. So, but yeah, Blake, you want to read TJ Tampa's statement there?
Yeah, I got you. He says, "Personally, I want to thank the Lord above because none of this is possible without him. I want to thank my family for being the most supportive and loving people on this earth. I would like to thank my Lakewood High School coaches for believing in me from day one and their continued guidance, to Coach Campbell, to the Iowa State coaches and the staff. I can't thank you enough for believing in a wide receiver down in Florida and seeing what is possible as a defensive back. Thank you for the development and positive encouragement through the good and bad days. To my teammates, thanks for the incredible memories and the brotherhood that will forever be with me. And lastly, to Cyclone Nation, thanks for your support over the years. I'm forever grateful to be a Cyclone for life. With that being said, I'm officially declaring for the 2024 NFL Draft."
Yep. Good luck to TJ. Hope the best for him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have a whole lot to say beyond what he said himself. So
yeah,
that pretty much sums it up. TJ Tampa was great for Cyclone Nation. He delivered for us, and he's gonna go be a great representative of Cyclone Nation in the NFL. So super excited to see where he goes and how he ends up doing. I anticipate good things. He's one of the best performing D-backs in the country. So, and then on top of that, I guess this isn't necessarily specific Iowa State news, but Electronic Arts is set to give an update on EA Sports college football development this coming Monday. Brandon Marcello from 24/7 Sports was reporting this. We might even get to see some new images from the game. So I'm real excited about this. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. It's been 10 years since we've had one of these games.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and keep in mind that they travel to every major college football stadium to get the feel and keep it as accurate as possible. So
yes, they're going to be having renderings of all of the FBS stadiums, and that's normal for what they've been doing with the franchise for a while. But they're even also going into detail to make sure that stadium playlists were going to be a part of it.
So expect a little juicy wiggle.
Yes, absolutely. Expect juicy wiggle for Iowa State home games in the new EA Sports college football game.
If they get the dance down too, chef's kiss.
I really hope they do something like that. That would be a nice little add-on. It's not something that's absolutely necessary or anything for the game, but would it be a nice little detail? Oh yeah, I'd love that.
But the dance itself isn't exclusive to us because other schools do it to different music. But
there's various alterations of it. Yes.
Yeah. But if you get the beat down when we're
yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
And
it'd be a nice little touch to add.
No, it was in the requested music selection.
Yes, it was.
Because one of our reps sent in Juicy Wiggle.
Right. Yeah. Lots of the schools did that. Yeah. I don't know if it was all of them or not, but there was a fairly large number of schools where they sent in their stadium playlists for that.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot of news in the volleyball front aside from the fact that it is now 2024, which means that the Professional Volleyball Federation launches its first year. This will be the first attempt at a major volleyball league in America. and that'll be starting up here later in January. And we have one ISU alum that is signed in the Pro Volleyball Federation, Jess Shaben, who is a 2018 grad, if I'm not mistaken. Her senior year at Iowa State was in 2018. And she'll be playing with the Omaha Supernovas. So, and y'all know me. Y'all know I love volleyball. I'm probably going to try to make it to one of those Omaha Supernovas games at some point, since Omaha's not too horribly far. And, if the PVF grows, and maybe we'll end up covering it on the show too. So,
yeah,
we'll see what ends up happening.
Do you know what? Do you know where they're going to be playing? I know it's Omaha, but
they will be playing at the CHI Health Center.
Nice.
So they're gonna have a nice big arena for that to fill up.
Good.
And their ticket sales have been doing pretty well too. So.
More volleyball news. Tierney Jackson has signed with, she committed.
Yeah, committed.
She committed to Iowa State as a middle blocker because we really needed those. She comes from West Virginia.
Yes, from West Virginia.
So
yes.
So we're cool with West Virginia.
Yeah, she's adding some much needed depth to our program. And I've talked about my feelings about in-conference transferring on the show before, and this doesn't change my opinion of that.
Yeah, me neither.
But right now, I will gladly accept this for what it is, because this is going to give us some much needed depth. Because right now, the only returner we have at middle blocker is Pam McCune. She'll be a sophomore next year. And with Kelsey Perry transferring, if we were not getting Tierney Jackson, then all we would have right now coming into next year would be Pam. And we have one incoming freshman that will be a middle blocker. So having that extra layer of depth gives us injury protection and other important things that we otherwise would not have. So that's good stuff. Men's basketball closed out their season, closed out their non-conference season. They closed out their non-conference season, and they closed out 2023 with a win against New Hampshire. 15-point margin of victory. Feels a little small for how we've been doing this year, but you know what? For most teams, that's more well than acceptable. So, 85-70 win. And we closed out that non-con slate with an 11-2 record. And Keyshawn Gilbert, triple-double. It was a great way. He played a great game. So,
that's
very well balanced.
Recently got new Big 12 Newcomer of the Week again.
Yes. Yes, he did. And one thing, right now, we are still remaining under the radar amongst the pollsters. In the AP poll, we were the 6th team out, and in the coaches poll, we were the, does it say 4th team out? I thought we were the 7th team out. Maybe not. I don't know. I thought we were the 7th team out in the coaches poll, but the notes here say 4th team. Either way, right now, I'm actually perfectly okay with us flying under the radar. Our strength of schedule in the non-con was a bit weak. That's basically stat padded for us, though, when it gets to when we start looking at getting into March Madness and, your things like margin of victory and your points per game, points allowed per game. Those start getting looked at a little bit more holistically and less so on a game-by-game basis. And that will very much likely help us when it comes to seeding in March. But flying under the radar right now with the polls means that the longer we fly under the radar, the longer that they're putting that chip on our boys' shoulder, there's still something to prove. I think that's a good thing, because as long as they've got something to prove, they're going to be going out and trying to prove it. So I think that's a good place to be right now, actually. I don't know. Am I wrong on this?
No, you're not.
I mean, is there even a good case to be made why? I mean, there's cases. You can make a case why we should be ranked, but is there a case to be made why that would be a good thing for the team right now? Because I can't really think of one. I think it's better off right now that we're not ranked. I think that's going to encourage us to play better. Especially considering we've got the number one remaining strength of schedule in the country.
And get this.
It's followed by every single other team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
This just means that the Big 12 is unequivocally the best basketball league now. Not even close.
And we're adding Arizona next year, too.
Yeah. Adding BYU and Houston really put us over the top this year. Those two are great schools. They're going to be tough to play. And we got Houston coming up here in this next week here. But yeah, Big 12, true Super League in men's basketball now. And it's only going to get tougher. So, but yeah, number one remaining strength of schedule for the rest of the year. So yes, our non-con slate was a little bit weak. We're more well than going to make up for it. So, and then, yeah, we open conference play against Oklahoma before hosting Houston in the first home conference game.
Those games, coming from the somewhat weak schedule, we got to be ready for those. I mean, last year we especially saw that anything can happen in the conference play slates. I mean, you see how Baylor was ranked for most of the schedule, and then we just beat them all 3 times.
Yeah.
But Houston held Pennsylvania to 0 points for 9 minutes to start the game.
It's also Penn.
It is also Penn, but goes to show the amazing defense on that one. But
yes, and Houston and Iowa State are two teams that are they are the two teams that stand alone when it comes to defensive efficiency and points off turnovers. If you look at, I was seeing yesterday, there's a chart that was posted on, I think it was on Twitter, but it was showing the on your x-axis is your adjusted defensive efficiency, and your y-axis was your average points off turnovers per game. And Houston and Iowa State, far and away, high in defensive efficiency and way up there in the average points off turnovers per game. This game is going to be wild with defense creating offense, and it's anybody's guess what ends up actually happening in that game.
Home court advantage will help us there.
Home court, well, Hilton Magic always helps.
Oh, yeah.
But then again, when you're playing with two teams like this that are that dynamic, it's like trying to predict exactly which way you're going to bounce when you bungee jump or something like that. I don't know how that actually works. I've never bungee jumped. But so maybe that analogy doesn't work at all. But either way, it's going to be a very exhilarating game. And I'm stoked for it. And then Oklahoma, you got anything on that one? I haven't seen much of Oklahoma. I saw a little bit of their game against Arkansas, but that was all that I've seen from them.
Don't have a whole lot on Oklahoma, but yeah.
Yes, there's been a lot of ball to watch so far this year, and hard to see everybody. So
it is hard to see everyone. We'll be on the road for the first time in a while.
Yeah, we will. If I recall, last year Oklahoma was at. We played at Oklahoma early on in the conference slate as well, and we almost lost that one at the very end. That ended up being a very tight game, and I would certainly foresee this game also being rather tight. You got two very talented teams, obviously. You're not going to get to be, what's Oklahoma's record? 12-1 right now? 11-1, 12-1, something like that.
They've only lost one.
They only have their only losses to North Carolina. But you're not going to get to that point without being a pretty darn good team. So I would certainly expect this to be a very exciting, very tight game. And we'll see how Iowa State does with a hostile crowd, because this will be the first time all year that they've really had to deal with a hostile crowd. So, with Cyhawk having been a home game, we obviously did not have to deal with a hostile crowd in that. Women's basketball, they already opened up their conference slate with 2 wins, one at Gallagher-Iba Arena against Oklahoma State. And, you know, I got to give some credit to Gallagher-Iba Arena. You no longer have the worst TV viewing angle in the Big 12. Baylor holds that one now. As nice as their new arena looks, that TV viewing angle is bad. It was so painful to watch. You're just staring at the scalps on players' heads. It's like the best analogies that I could think of for that TV camera angle. It's like watching from a security camera in the rafters, or like if it was a football game, watching from the Goodyear blimp. Because it was way too high overhead. Now they put their press box at Baylor's new arena at the top of their second deck. Why anybody would do that, I don't know.
No.
Because any sane designer would put that on the level of your first concourse, at the top of your lower bowl. But that's the way we have it in Hilton Coliseum. That's the way any serious arena does it. And you know, in some cases, your older arenas that have stacked decks, like I know, like Williams Arena in Minnesota is an example of this. Is where they have the camera at the very front of the second deck, because they don't really have much of a press box there. But I mean, it makes sense, and it doesn't create a terrible viewing angle because the camera's at least in close enough. Baylor, it's so far out. I mean, when they pan the camera over, you know, when a guy gets in the paint and you can still see the half court line. It's too far out. It's too vertical. But anyway, back to, you know, actual ball. Aside from the win at Oklahoma State, the women came home and proceeded to beat Kansas in our conference home opener. And there's a bit of a common thread here between these two games. We didn't start off great in either one of these games. Both Oklahoma State and Kansas got out to early leads. But our team did well at adjusting in these games. And Blake, what was it that Hannah Bellinger said after the Kansas game?
I kept on watching after the game for Hannah Bellinger's interview. So coming into halftime, she said Coach Fenn told everyone who played already that they had at least one turnover. So Coach told everyone, get one less than what you had before. And then they just took off.
So that's good motivational stuff from Fenn. That's the kind of stuff that I like to hear about a coach saying. Because that's something, you know, where if I was going to coach, you know, I wouldn't make a great basketball coach, but that is one of the kinds of things that, you know, I would go and say to be motivational. And obviously it worked because they went out and they balled in that second half.
Yes, they did.
Where, I mean, they kind of got their clocks cleaned in the first quarter, and then they came back in the second quarter to tie it up at halftime. That second half was all Iowa State, and, you know, kudos to Coach Fenn for making the adjustments and giving the team the motivation to get back in that game and actually win in a pretty dominant fashion. And then outside of the Iowa State stuff, it looks like the Big 12 race might have gotten blown wide open. It looked like it was going to be pretty open and shut for Texas at the start of the season. But Rory Harmon had a season-ending, I believe it was an ACL injury.
Ooh.
So, I mean, obviously we want her to get better. We don't want injuries or anything like that. But the effect of that is that, you know, Rory Harmon is a terrific player that Texas is going to have to go without for the rest of the year. And that's going to have implications in the Big 12 race. We don't know how Texas is going to adjust to not having her. Maybe they end up doing just fine. But we'll see what ends up actually happening. And this the Big 12 is now got significantly more competitive parity on the women's side as well. So we'll see what ends up actually happening, but right now it is anybody's guess.
Mm.
And then, what do we got? Audie Crooks, second Big 12 Freshman of the Week, Blake?
Yes, we did. I think it's her second one in 3 weeks. So.
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder, can we start petitioning for Audie Crooks to get Big 12 Freshman of the Year? I mean, it worked last time with us.
I don't know if there have been other ones getting multiple Freshman of the Weeks yet. There have been a lot of weeks so far.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't quite like Naeli just racking them up for volleyball week in, week out. There wasn't really anybody else that was even making much of a case. Whereas I'm not particularly aware with Big 12 because we're how many weeks into the season now, and she's only got 2. Somebody else has probably got multiple. But yeah, wrestling tonight. We will be wrestling at number 21 ranked Arizona State. The big marquee matchup in this one between number 3rd ranked Younger Bastida and number 5th ranked Colton Schultz at heavyweight. This is going to be a real exciting bout to watch. So if you actually have Pac-12 Plus to stream this, which I didn't even know existed until yesterday, then enjoy watching that. Otherwise, listen to it. Listen to the radio stream on cyclones.com or Varsity or wherever that ends up actually streaming at, so that you can, hear Younger hopefully beat Colton Schultz. Other notable matchups that we've gotten in this one, we've got a handful of ranked matchups here. At 125, we got Kyson Terrakina and Richard Figueroa. 133, we got number 7, Evan Frost, and number 23, Julian Schlabove. At 149, Zach Redding will be wrestling against the 4th-ranked Kyle Parko. At 157, number 20 ranked Cody Chittum will be wrestling against number 4 Ja'Cory Teemer. These are all projected matchups. Of course, other wrestlers could, in theory, step in. Now, Chittum very nearly actually and in my opinion, he rightfully did beat 2nd-ranked Jared Franick back in the Cyhawk duel. So,
I don't remind me.
So yeah, keep that one as a dark horse potential upset alert here. I would say keep an eye on that one at 125 as well. Kyson's already got 4 losses on the year, so he's not been wrestling quite as well as he has in some previous years. But that could be a potential upset alert as well. Kyson Terrakina potentially over Richard Figueroa would be one to look at. 184, we got another ranked matchup between 9th-ranked Will Feldkamp and Arizona State's 29th-ranked Tony Negrin. I would guess for this duel, we probably win about 6 to 7 bouts. That likely depends on whether or not Younger can win heavyweight. That will be very close, and to be honest, I have no idea who's actually going to win that. Remember, this is still Younger's first season at heavyweight. He's been wrestling 197 the previous 2 years. He's been wrestling guys that he hasn't wrestled before. So, this will be his first time wrestling against Colton Schultz. And it's hard to know what to expect in a situation like that where Schultz has been wrestling at heavyweight for a while. And while Younger hasn't been wrestling at heavyweight all that long, he is undefeated right now. So, but yeah, and then as I previously mentioned, the 125 and 157 weight classes would be possible locations for an Iowa State upset win. After that, tomorrow, we'll be wrestling at Cal Baptist to open Big 12 duels. And Cal Baptist has no ranked wrestlers. There's no ranked matchups in this one. Nothing marquee to speak of. This should be a pretty easy open and shut Big 12 win. And that one will be streaming on Flow Wrestling. So, Blake, it's time for some high-speed wins.
High-speed wins?
Oh. It's time for high-speed wins. Give us some high-speed wins.
It's time for high-speed wins. So tonight is when gymnastics starts their season, and Ashley Miles Greek will start her coaching debut. And tonight, also, me and friend of the show, Cody, will head there to scope it out. The promotion tonight is also Swifty night, so wish us luck. I'm coming there for Ashley Miles Greek coaching debut. I'm not touching Swifty night.
All you had to say is Swifty night now. I just know I'm not going to be there. I cannot stand Taylor Swift or pretty much anything, aside from a couple of her older songs. But no, the whole Swifty culture, I don't do.
No. Coming into this year, I will also keep you guys posted on tennis too, and the current status of the Cyhawk series. So that is all for high speed wins.
Yep.
On to pro sports.
Vikings, they are 7-9, third in the NFC North, and currently on the outside looking into the playoffs. They're somehow not eliminated yet. You want to give us a quick rundown of what happened in their last game, and then I'll explain that playoff picture.
I mean, losing 3 in a row right now, and they're still looking for the playoff run. Keep your hopes up. Recent loss to the Packers.
Vikings keeping their hopes up.
Oh no. Vikings lose to the Packers 33-10. Yeah, they still haven't been doing the best in their home stadium. They also couldn't get the first downs to go because offense decided not to go for a touchdown until the fourth quarter. And yeah, no one on that field decided to show up to New Year's Eve. They just wanted to get home and pop some champagne. So guys, why do you guys make Jordan Love look good? I'm supposed to make fun of this guy.
Yeah, no, I don't have an answer for that one.
No.
But
Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell said he told the players afterwards, quotes, "I wasn't good enough for us," and like that I just read in like a recent article. So.
And in this next week they'll be playing at the Lions. The Lions are playing for little more than seeding in this game to try to get the second seed over either the Dallas Cowboys or I don't think can they get it over the Eagles? I'm not sure. They could get it over the Dallas Cowboys, but Minnesota can still get into the playoffs with, and this is a lot of check boxes here, so bear with me. They need to win. They need the Seahawks to lose. They need the Packers to lose. And then they need the Saints to lose or have the Saints tie and the Buccaneers lose. They need all of that to happen. They need 4 different things to happen in order to get into the playoffs. So it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. If you're really one diehard Vikings fan, maybe you bet a parlay on that or something. I don't know. But spread for the game against the Lions here is Detroit minus 3.5. I love it when the spread's a minus 3.5 because then it's more than a field goal. I like Minnesota to cover.
Do you think
I don't know whether or not they win, but Minnesota covers.
You think Minnesota will learn from Christmas?
I'm not sure whether or not they will be able to pull the win off, but I think that when you have more motivation than the other team does, that makes a pretty big difference. Detroit's locked in as a division champion, and they're not going to get the number 1 seeds. They're going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs. They're going to, likely have. Well, no, they are going to have home field in the first round of the playoffs. Whether or not they do in the second round is a bit up in the air because that will depend on now the Cowboys and Eagles do as well. But, yeah, I like Minnesota to cover this game. The Detroit minus 3.5 spread. What about you? Where are you sitting at on the spread here?
I think I'm with you. I mean, I feel like Minnesota can learn from their last loss.
All right. Let's go to the Bears here. Bears 7-9, last in the NFC North, and even though they have the same record as the Vikings, the Bears are in fact eliminated from playoff contention. So they're done.
With their recent win with the Falcons, Atlanta. How do you have 4 turnovers against the Bears? I mean, we did talk about this with Vinnie last week.
The Bears' defense has gotten a lot better though with Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
That's made a huge difference in the Bears kind of resurging in this second half of the year. Montez Sweat has elevated their entire defense.
But do you think this is an impressive win for the Bears standard?
You beat any team by 20 and it's an impressive win in the NFL. It doesn't matter who it is. You beat anybody by 20 in the NFL and it's an impressive win.
But Atlanta has deprived me of making fun of the Bears again. Why?
Well, maybe because the Falcons just didn't play that good. And what's crazy is that the Falcons, with their losing record, can still win their division. They can still be the 4 seed in the playoffs. The NFC South is not particularly strong.
No.
Yeah. And then Bears will be at the Packers, who, as we previously mentioned, they won against the Vikings, and the Packers took control of a wild card spot on Jordan Love's 4-touchdown night. They're not locked into the playoff yet, but if the season ended today, they would be in. So they are currently slated as a 7 seed, and they'll be playing the Bears. So to get into the playoffs, the Packers, if they win, they're in. Or the other option is if the Packers lose, then they need a Seattle loss, a Minnesota loss, and then either the Saints or the Bucs to lose.
I think it's easier if they win.
Well, yes, it'd be much easier if they win. And considering that the Packers have something to play for in this game, the spread is Green Bay -3. Considering the Packers have something to play for in this game and the Bears really don't, I'd like the Packers not only to win this game but to cover. I think that Green Bay can win this game by touchdown.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on the spread here?
I think they'll win by more than that.
More than a touchdown or more than the spread?
Both. I'm not saying like way more than just 1 touchdown, but I'd say just like a touchdown and a field goal. I'd say at the least. Yeah.
10-point margin.
Yeah.
All right, and then Chiefs 10-6, AFC West champion, and they're guaranteed to be the 3rd seed in the AFC. They beat the Bengals last week, 25-17. And if you had Harrison Butker as your kicker in your fantasy football championship, that would have been amazing for you. Unfortunately, I missed our fantasy football championship, and I did have Harrison Butker, so that was a little depressing. But yeah, Harrison Butker was responsible for 19 of Kansas City's points, so he alone outscored Cincinnati with 6 field goals and an extra point. So. But yeah, it solidified their spot as the AFC West champion. They will not be able to pass Baltimore. They've locked themselves in as the number 1 seed. And then the AFC East champion will either outright have a better record than Kansas City if it's Miami, or if Buffalo wins that, they will hold head-to-head tiebreaker. So the winner of the AFC East will be the number 2 seed, and then it will be Kansas City, and then it will be whatever ends up happening in the AFC South. That's still wide open. So Kansas City will host a playoff game in the first round, and then they will be playing the Chargers here on Sunday in what is essentially a meaningless game, because the Chargers are eliminated. Kansas City's spot's locked. The regular starters are going to be benched. The spread on this one is Chargers minus 3.5. So I actually like the Chargers to cover in this one because Kansas City's not going to be playing their starters. It's going to be the guys that have been sitting behind. We're probably going to see some names that we haven't even seen before. So, yeah, I think the Chargers end up winning and covering in this one.
So it's meaningless. So they're still in for postseason stuff.
Yes.
Or post regular season. Yeah.
Yeah, Kansas City's locked in as the 3 seed.
Okay.
And Los Angeles is eliminated.
All right.
So
meaningless.
This game has no effect at all on the outcome of the playoff picture.
Gotcha.
So yeah, with Kansas City having already announced they're going to be benching all of their starters, maybe most of their starters. I don't know if they're going to be benching all 22 starters, but with that having been announced and they breaking out the backups for the entire game, yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if the Chargers covered in this game. NBA, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are up to 24-9, still first in the Northwest. In the last week, they had a win at home against the Lakers in a tight one, 108-106. Before consecutive losses, first at the Knicks, 112-106, and then at home against the New Orleans Pelicans, 117-106. And that was not a good day on the boards for the Timberwolves. The highest individual rebound total by anybody on that team, Karl Anthony Towns had 6. That was it. That made the lowest. It made the lowest team high for an individual all year for the Timberwolves. In every other game, somebody has had more than that. I think the previous low was 8 rebounds for an individual. But yeah, not a good day on the boards for anybody in Minnesota. But on the offensive side, Anthony Edwards has been showing up, posting 30-plus points in all 3 of those games in the last week. And then upcoming here in the next week, they'll have a chance to Anthony Edwards will have a chance to keep some of that stuff going. They'll have games at the Rockets, at the Mavericks, at the Magic, before having a tough game in TD Garden at the Celtics. So they'll have a chance to get a few more wins here.
Got a lot on the road there.
Yes, they do got a lot on the road here. It's 4 games in a row here on the road before I think that they end up coming back to the Target Center next week. Milwaukee Bucks here in the last week, yeah. Go ahead.
Bucks previous week, dub against Cleveland, and then 2 losses against Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, defense just getting absolutely thrown by the wayside in that last one, too. Yeah. The final score of that last one, 142-130. And this was across the league that night, too. Defense was just non-existent. That night alone, I'll list off some scores here. Utah Jazz, now this was an overtime score. This was the only overtime score of the night, by the way. Scored 154 points against the Pistons. Now they had no business going to overtime against the Pistons because the Pistons are the Pistons, and they're probably going to end up being the worst team in NBA history. But nonetheless, 154 points against the Pistons. We had 5 different teams score 140 or more points, and 10 different teams score 130 or more points. And then last night on national TV, the Bucks played a game against the Spurs that had no business being as close as it was. The Bucks defense was not really there, letting the Spurs score 121 points. The Spurs are not that good. If I'm not mistaken, they have 5 wins on the year. So, while they're better than the Pistons, with the Pistons, 3 wins? Yeah. The Spurs are not a good team either. But Victor Wembanyama showed up in that game, though, for the Spurs. 5 blocks on his 20th birthday. And he had a couple highlight reel dunks in that game, too. So, he had himself a day in that loss. And then upcoming for the Bucks, they'll have games at the Rockets, at the Jazz, and then home against the Celtics. Chicago Bulls in the last week had a win at home against the Sixers where they held them to only 92 points. It was a good defensive outing for the Bulls. I like to see stuff like that before losing in Philadelphia to the Sixers and then at the Knicks on national TV where they blew the game in the fourth quarter. Again. The Bulls in the fourth quarter this year just I don't understand it. It's when they lose, it's like they're running out of gas, like the conditioning's just not there or something, which that's not the problem. These guys are NBA athletes. They're conditioned. But it's like they run out of gas and they just, because they kept it close through most of the game, and in the fourth quarter the Knicks just ran away with it. And that's been a recurring theme for the Bulls this year, was they keep it close for a while and then you get late in the third or into the fourth and another team will just run away with it. When the Bulls win, they've been widening the gap late in the game because their average fourth quarter margin is pretty close to 0. So I think it's only minus 2.5 or something like that, which means when they're winning, they're widening that gap significantly in the fourth quarter. When they're losing, the gap is also widening significantly in the fourth quarter. And so upcoming for the Bulls, home against the Hornets before going to Charlotte to play the Hornets. Yeah, New Orleans isn't the Hornets anymore. Hasn't been for a long time. What am I thinking? Before going to, they'll play the Charlotte Hornets at home. Then they'll go to Charlotte to play the Hornets. Hornets are not great. Should be able to pick up a couple wins there before they come back to United Center and play the Rockets. Let's get to the NHL here before we close out the show.
Brace yourselves for this one. Oh.
Yeah, if you're a Midwest hockey fan, you're just depressed right now.
This entire section.
Yeah, the 3 teams that we cover had a combined how many wins this week, Blake?
1.
Yeah, 1.
1.
Yes. The Wild have lost their last 4 games, 2 of which were to the Jets. Now, I get those losses. The Jets are one of the top teams in the Central Division right now. Then they also lost at home against the Flames and against the Lightning, where they were not able to score more than 1 goal in either one of those games. So after winning 4 games in a row, they lost 4 in a row.
Yeah. Right now in the John Hines era, things were going uphill with the John Hines era, but now things are just slippery now.
Yeah, now they're a streaky team, but let's see what their last coach got fired after 7 losses in a row, so we're over halfway there. We'll see what ends up happening. They got their week's not going to get a whole lot easier here coming up here. They got a game at the Blue Jackets. That's a winnable game. After that, though, they got 2 games in a row against the Stars, and they're in the same position as the Jets are, competing for the top of the Central. So the Stars are a good team this year. It's going to be hard for the Wild to play the Stars twice in a row and definitely beat them both times. Even beating them once is going to be tough.
Just saying, John. John, you better watch out.
Yes. And then Chicago Blackhawks here in the last week, before I mentioned the last week, the Chicago Blackhawks 11-25-2, only 24 points in the standings. They are dead last in the Central, and it's not even remotely close. Not a great team. They also have 4 losses in a row in this last week, and that losing streak might actually go back farther. I don't have that in my notes here, but they lost at the Stars in overtime before losing at the Stars again, 8-1.
Where is that defense?
What defense?
Yep. Oh, silly me.
Their offense also isn't showing up because in their last 3 games they scored a combined 2 goals. They got shut out at the Preds before losing 4-1 at the Rangers. Obviously Vinny's not here talking about this right now.
I think it's good that he's not.
He'd be kind of mad probably.
Oh, no.
There isn't really a whole lot we can say about this Blackhawks team, so that we haven't already said yet this year.
Yeah.
Bedard is Calder Memorial Trophy material. He's probably going to be Rookie of the Year. He's leading in major categories. The rest of the team is just not good enough to be competitive for anything. So upcoming here, they'll be playing at the Devils before they have 2 home games versus the Flames and the Oilers, and then they will be at Winnipeg to play the Jets. And then the St. Louis Blues here, who have a losing record in the last weekend and are somehow our lone bright spot in the world of the NHL.
Our lone winner.
Yeah. After consecutive losses, one at home against the Avalanche and one in Pittsburgh against the Penguins, they came home and got a 2-1 win against the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks not an easy team to beat either. They're one of the stronger teams in the NHL right now. And the Blues, they got their lone win among any of the teams we covered for the week, and with that, they also preserved their lone winning record among the teams that we cover. Because had they lost that game, they would be 18-1. So, not a lot of good stuff in the world of hockey if you are in the Midwest right now. Upcoming here, they're going to be at the Canes before they have a home game against the Florida Panthers. None of our teams are getting an easy week this week. There's no weeks off in the NHL right now. And then they will have another home game against the New York Rangers. MLB's been pretty much dead as far as free agency and trades go for the teams we cover. It's been a very slow offseason in terms of that. Nothing new really to report as far as that goes. So, follow the Cornfield Sports Pod on Twitter at CSportsPod. You can find me at the Menson Minute.
You can find me at BlakeAttack1846.
Make sure you hit that follow button on Spotify, the plus button on Apple, and subscribe on YouTube and Rumble.
This is Blake Peterson.
I'm Matt Menson. Our producer is Vinnie Cataldo, and this has been the Cornfield Sports Pod.